I devoted my life and financial resources to raising my stepdaughter, only for her to repay me by helping her father conceal his affair and introducing his mistress as her mother at her college graduation party, an event I funded. And now, she's being cast out of their home because they no longer need her, as they're making room for their real family. Right now, I'm in the middle of divorcing my husband of 12 years due to his infidelity. We had been together for almost 16 years, and during that time, I raised his daughter as my own since she was just 5 years old. My soon-to-be ex-husband, David, 46M, and my soon-to-be ex-stepdaughter, Lauren, 21F, have been at the center of my world ever since I, 40F, started dating him. Discovering his betrayal was painful enough, but what truly shattered me was learning that Lauren had been complicit, actively helping him hide his affair. The way I found out made it even more devastating. They chose to reveal everything at Lauren's college graduation party, an event I had paid for. This all happened about 3 months ago. Lauren had recently returned home after finishing school, and I wanted to celebrate her achievement, so I planned a party for her. I invited her friends and some family members, hoping to make the occasion special. That evening, as guests began arriving, David casually mentioned that one of his coworkers would also be attending. Her name was Nina, 29F, and she had joined his department about a year ago. I had met her a few times at company events and even welcomed her into my home for a dinner party David hosted for his colleagues. She had always been polite, and I treated her kindly in return. Looking back now, I feel sick knowing I invited her into my home and treated her with warmth, completely unaware of what was going on behind my back. The events of that night are still etched into my memory, as it was undoubtedly one of the most traumatic evenings of my life. Nina arrived late, making an entrance as if she were walking the red carpet, dressed far too extravagantly for the occasion. Her arrival turned heads, and from the moment she walked in, something felt off. When I greeted her at the door, she completely ignored me, walking straight to David and latching onto him like they were a couple. Shockingly, he didn't seem to mind at all. Their behavior was blatantly inappropriate, but I chose to hold my tongue, thinking I'd confront David later. I didn't want to cause a scene and take the attention away from Lauren on what was supposed to be her special night. Shortly after Nina arrived, Lauren decided to give a speech. That's when everything unraveled. I was already feeling uneasy watching David and Nina together when Lauren started speaking. She expressed gratitude to her father, thanking him for everything he had done for her and praising him for single-handedly raising her after her mother passed away when she was just 2. My stomach dropped. As far as I was concerned, David had not raised her alone. I had been there, both emotionally and financially, from the moment I became part of their lives. I was, in every way, a mother to Lauren. To hear her erase my role so casually was heartbreaking, but I held on to the hope that she might acknowledge me in some way. Then, she spoke about another person who had been a pillar of support for her over the past few months, someone who had comforted her through difficult times and lifted her spirits when she was at her lowest. For a brief moment, against all logic, I let myself believe she might be talking about me. Even though I knew our relationship had grown distant since she left for college, and even before that, during her rebellious teenage years, I still thought maybe, just maybe, she would offer me some recognition. But I was wrong. Completely wrong. Unfortunately, she then went on to say that this person had become like a mother to her because of the strong bond they had formed. To everyone's shock, she walked over to Nina and embraced her tightly, while I stood there, frozen in disbelief. It was a complete slap in the face. For a few moments, I couldn't react. I just stood still, completely blank, as I processed the fact that Lauren, the girl I had raised as my own since she was a child, had just publicly referred to another woman as her mother. After a few seconds, reality hit me, and I couldn't stay there any longer. Overwhelmed, I turned and hurried inside the house, rushing straight to my bedroom. As soon as I locked the door behind me, the tears came. By then, I had seen and heard enough to piece everything together. Lauren's words, her affectionate hug with Nina, and the way David had been holding Nina's hand all evening, standing beside her while keeping his distance from me, made it painfully clear. I wasn't stupid. I knew exactly what was happening, and the sheer humiliation of it all crushed me. I waited, hoping that David or even Lauren would come upstairs to check on me, to explain something, anything. But that never happened. Instead, I sat there alone for the next hour, crying, while the party went on without me. Eventually, I realized that no one was coming, and I had no reason to stay in that house any longer. I started packing my things because, after everything that had happened, I knew I couldn't be part of this family anymore. Once most of my belongings were packed, I went downstairs to the living room, only to find David, Lauren, and Nina waiting for me. Before I could even say a word, David and Lauren immediately began berating me for how I had acted out at the party. They accused me of making things awkward for everyone, forcing them to serve dinner early and send guests home to prevent further drama or gossip. According to them, my reaction was completely out of line, and they insisted I owed our guests an apology for making them uncomfortable. Hearing all of this, while Nina just stood there watching, made my blood boil. Up until that moment, I had planned to leave quietly, without making a scene. But the sheer audacity of their accusations pushed me over the edge. I couldn't hold back anymore. I tore into them, demanding answers for what was really going on, even though, deep down, I already knew. That's when David finally admitted it. He confessed that he had been in a relationship with Nina for the past few months and no longer had any feelings for me. But he didn't stop there. He went on to say that he had actually fallen out of love with me about a year ago, right around the time he first met Nina and became friends with her. And then, as if all of this wasn't cruel enough, he had the nerve to blame me for it. According to him, I had turned into a nag, and without Lauren around as a buffer, he had no distractions from the fact that he simply didn't love me anymore. The spark, he claimed, was gone. But with Nina, he had felt that spark again, and she was the woman he truly wanted to be with. That was why he had made his decision to leave me. As I stood there, listening to him, I realized just how deeply I had been betrayed, not just by my husband, but by the very daughter I had spent my life raising. Then, David dropped another bombshell. Lauren had known about his affair from the very beginning and had fully supported it. In fact, she believed that Nina was a better match for him than I ever was. Not only had she been aware of everything, but she had also actively helped him cover his tracks, coming up with ways to ensure I wouldn't find out until he was ready to tell me. Hearing this made my stomach turn. And the worst part? She didn't even look the slightest bit ashamed. Instead, she stood there proudly, hand in hand with Nina, as if she had done something admirable. At that moment, I realized just how selfish and ungrateful people could be. There was no point in wasting my breath on them. So, I simply told them that I wished them luck with their new family, since it was clear I was no longer welcome. Without another word, I walked out. Within a week, I had filed for divorce. Of course, after dedicating so much of my life to this family, I wasn't about to walk away empty-handed. I demanded a significant amount of alimony and fought to keep the house for myself. In my mind, that was only fair. After all, they had stolen years of my life that I could never get back. I had sacrificed the chance to have children of my own because, to me, Lauren had always been enough. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I would end up in a situation like this. So, if David was responsible for tearing my life apart, it was only right that he compensate me for it. I refused to feel guilty for fighting for what I deserved. But, unsurprisingly, David didn't agree to my terms. That's why, for the past few days, we've been going through mediation, trying to reach some kind of settlement. My lawyer and I have been straightforward, presenting the facts, but David and his legal team have been twisting everything, trying to paint me as the villain, as if I somehow drove him to cheat. Neither of us wants to take this battle to court, but if it comes to that, I honestly don't care. I have nothing to lose at this point, and I firmly believe justice will be on my side. I've already endured so much. What's a courtroom compared to the betrayal I've faced? And judging by how things are unfolding, it seems like the scales are already tipping in my favor. A few days ago, Lauren showed up at my apartment, begging for forgiveness. I have no idea how she found out where I was staying. I had been extremely careful not to share my location with anyone, but I guess someone must have let it slip. When I realized it was her at the door, I refused to open it. I told her to leave, but she started sobbing, pleading with me to hear her out. Through her tears, she confessed that her father and Nina had kicked her out earlier that day after finding out that Nina was pregnant. As it turns out, David and Nina had known about the pregnancy for quite some time, even before the graduation party. That was the real reason they chose that day to break the news to me. They knew they couldn't keep it a secret for much longer, as Nina would soon start showing. Up until then, she had managed to conceal it, but over the past few weeks, it had become increasingly difficult for her to hide. So earlier that day, David and Nina finally sat Lauren down and told her it was time for her to move out. The house is plenty big, large enough for all of them to live together, but apparently, they've started thinking about money. Their grand plan? Rent out one of the upstairs rooms for extra income. Since they needed one room for the baby and another to lease, there was no more space for Lauren. She had to go, effective immediately. Honestly, it's no surprise that they're having financial struggles. Nina has already quit her job, and from what I've heard, it wasn't exactly on the best terms. I still keep in touch with one of David's co-workers' wives, and she told me that the entire office had been gossiping about David and Nina's affair. That's apparently why Nina felt the need to leave, too much attention on their scandal. Obviously, David won't admit to any of it at work, since he knows his bosses wouldn't look kindly on that kind of behavior. But I'm sure management isn't blind. Sooner or later, they'll put the pieces together. And when they do, I wouldn't be surprised if they take action against him. For now, though, he still has his job, but I'd bet anything he's already planning his exit strategy. He probably wants to leave before he gets fired, saving himself the embarrassment. That's why he's scrambling to bring in extra money by renting out rooms. And let's not forget, his divorce lawyer is definitely charging him extra too. I spent 16 years with this man. I know exactly how his mind works. I also know that once he has to start paying alimony and give up the house, keeping up his lifestyle is going to be a serious challenge. That's all the more reason for me to push forward and make sure he faces the consequences of what he did to me. But this isn't about him. It's about me and Lauren. So anyway, thanks to her, I was able to get some inside information on what's happening with David, but that hardly means I'm about to forgive her. When she showed up at my apartment a few days ago, I let her speak, but I had no intention of letting her back into my life. As soon as she finished, I told her to leave. She begged me over and over for forgiveness, and I'll admit, it was hard keeping that door shut. But I had to. If I opened it, I knew I'd end up helping her, and after everything I'd already been through, I refused to make that mistake again. I had paid the price for my kindness once. I wasn't about to do it again. Still, she wouldn't leave. She stood outside, pleading, insisting that she finally understood what I had gone through when she betrayed me. Now that her father had discarded her so easily, she could feel the same pain I had felt. She kept saying how sorry she was, but she just needed a little help, just until she found a job and could afford her own place. After a while, I decided to bluff. I pretended to call the cops, and that finally scared her enough to leave. But apparently, it didn't scare her enough because, yesterday, she started texting me again, this time from a burner phone. Once again, she went on about how horribly her father and Nina had treated her, spinning yet another sob story. It was painfully obvious she was fishing for sympathy, hoping I'd take pity on her and offer her a place to stay until she could afford her own. But I wasn't falling for it. At one point, she sent me a message saying that David and Nina had told her she needed to leave because they needed to make space for their real family, meaning their baby. By then, I was beyond irritated. So, for the first time, I decided to respond. I told her that they weren't wrong, because based on the kind of person she had proven herself to be, she couldn't be loyal to anyone. I said I didn't blame them for not trusting her or considering her part of their family because, in reality, she wasn't worthy of being anyone's family. After sending that message, I blocked her. I didn't want to deal with her anymore, though I knew she could easily get another number and start bothering me all over again. But now, I'm being accused of being too harsh, because apparently, after receiving my message, she disappeared. She had been staying with a friend up until now, but last night, she went out for a walk to clear her head and never came back. Her phone is turned off, and she hasn't answered any messages. No one knows where she is. Her friend, worried sick, called David this morning. And in typical David fashion, instead of taking responsibility for the fact that he was the one who threw her out, he called me. Furious, blaming me for what happened. He said I had no right to say what I did to his daughter, completely ignoring the fact that she was the one who reached out to me first. She only ended up in this situation because he abandoned her to make space for his new family. We got into a massive argument over the phone. And, of course, I put him in his place. But now, as I sit with my thoughts, I wonder, did I take things too far? I can't shake this uneasy feeling. Even if she doesn't deserve my sympathy, the fact that no one has heard from her is starting to worry me. And honestly, I don't know what to do. Am I the asshole for telling my stepdaughter she's not worthy of being anybody's family? Update. Hey everyone. First of all, I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who has responded. The amount of support I've received has been overwhelming, and I truly didn't expect so many people to reach out. I really appreciate all the kind words, and I want to let you all know that I've made up my mind. I don't need to feel guilty about what's happening with David and Lauren, because, at the end of the day, they don't feel guilty about what they did to me. Honestly, I don't even think they're capable of guilt. Honestly, what Lauren does with her life isn't my problem anymore. I'm almost certain she pulled this stunt for attention. I'd bet anything she'll turn up in a few days, and if she doesn't, that's on David. If he's really that concerned, he can go to the cops himself, without dragging me into his mess. As far as I'm concerned, I have nothing to do with this. Maybe my message made her leave without saying anything, but this entire situation was set into motion the moment David kicked her out. He has no right to act like I'm the bad guy here. To make sure I never have to hear from him again, I've blocked his other number, the one he had been contacting me from. And if he tries to reach out again, I'll just keep blocking him. Update 2. It's been 2 days since my last update, and, surprise, surprise, they finally found Lauren. Turns out, she wasn't even missing. She had just gone to stay with a friend who lives in the suburbs and decided to ignore everyone's calls. That's it. There was never any real reason to panic. I know all of this because she contacted me first. She sent me a message, once again apologizing and saying that she had taken a couple of days to reflect on what I had said to her. Apparently, my words had hit harder than she expected because she realized I was right. She had betrayed me, and no one deserves to be treated the way I was after everything I had done for that family. She kept apologizing over and over again in her message, finally acknowledging how horribly she had acted. She also tried to explain why she had sided with Nina over me, even though she had known me practically her entire life and had barely even known Nina. And honestly, her reasoning just made me feel even worse about who she had become. David had promised to fund her lifestyle for the next couple of years, giving her whatever she wanted. And of course, to a college student, that was an incredibly tempting offer. On one hand, I thought David and I were teaching her financial independence and responsibility. On the other hand, he was bribing her, ensuring she kept all his secrets and that, when the time came, she would side with him and Nina over me. And this wasn't something that just happened. It had been going on for a long time. Ever since he started his affair with Nina, David had been writing Lauren dozens of checks, and she took full advantage of the opportunity for an entire year. It's honestly disgusting how she sold herself out like that. I would have preferred never knowing the truth because now it's just disappointing. And the irony? Given David's current situation, I doubt he can even afford to support himself anymore, let alone his daughter. Their fun days are over, and it's all because of me. So after reading her message, I don't feel even a shred of sympathy for either of them. In fact, I feel like they deserve every single thing that's coming their way. Anyway, I've officially blocked Lauren. She won't be able to contact me again, at least not from the number she used last time. As for David, he hasn't reached out either, but I'll be seeing him very soon, with my lawyer. So it doesn't really matter. Update 3. This will be a relatively short update, but I just found out something interesting. David quit his job. According to my friend, he put in his resignation about 2 weeks ago, and today was his last day. He hadn't mentioned it to anyone, which is why it came as a complete shock to his coworkers. But honestly, I saw this coming a mile away. Apparently, he told a few close friends, including my friend's husband, that he plans on starting his own business soon. And now, suddenly, everything makes sense. His sudden obsession with saving money, his willingness to throw his own daughter out just to cut costs. It's all because he's trying to fund this new venture of his. But honestly, whatever he's planning doesn't concern me. I'm still going after the alimony I deserve, no matter what financial mess he's gotten himself into. My only concern now is whether he'll try to pull anything shady during our mediation sessions. So far, he's been stalling, saying he's too overwhelmed with Nina's pregnancy to devote time to the case. But I don't buy it. He's just scared. He knows we're running out of time, and soon he'll have to face reality. Either we settle, or we take this to court, and at this point, he knows he won't win. Update 4. Hey everyone. A couple of days ago, I had my final mediation session with David, and guess what? He finally agreed to my terms. After everything that had come to light, there was no way he could argue that what I was asking for wasn't fair. I even had proof, Lauren's messages, screenshots, everything. If he had refused to settle, the next step would have been taking this to court, and we both knew that wouldn't end well for him. So after dragging this out for months, he finally caved. And honestly, I'm thrilled. He has until the end of the month to move out, and after that, the house is officially mine. I don't plan on living there, though. Instead, I'll be renting it out, because it's a beautiful property, and I know it'll bring in great income. Ironically, I'm actually going to use David's own idea against him. I don't need such a massive house for myself, so why not turn it into a steady source of money? As for me, I'm planning on moving into a bigger apartment. Maybe I'll even get a cat or something. I don't know. The future is wide open. What I do know is that I'm finally free. I wasted 16 years of my life with David and Lauren, and I have no intention of wasting another second. Update 5, 2 years later. Hey everyone. It's been nearly 2 years since my last update, and I just reread all of my old posts. Looking back, it's wild to see just how miserable I was back then. So much has changed in these past 2 years, and I'm incredibly proud of the life I've built for myself. I meant it when I said I was going to live life to the fullest, and I've been doing exactly that. Ever since my divorce, I've been traveling as much as I want, something I loved, but had to give up because David and Lauren never had that adventurous spirit. Every time we went on vacation, they would stay inside, and I'd either have to explore alone or tag along with people I barely knew. But now, I get to travel on my own terms. And honestly, it feels amazing. Anyway, life has been amazing. I've been traveling a lot, meeting incredible people, and making new friends all over the world. I've also been prioritizing myself, working out, getting into great shape, and finally doing all the things that make me happy. Things I never had the time for before. As for David and Lauren, I haven't had any direct contact with either of them in the past 2 years, with one small exception. Lauren still reaches out occasionally, usually on my birthday or during the holidays. I've never responded, but I do hope she moves on. I can't bring myself to forgive what she did, but at the same time, she's still just in her 20s. Everyone makes bad decisions at that age. What she did was unforgivable, but even so, I genuinely hope she builds a good future for herself. From what I've heard, she's completely cut ties with David and moved out of state for work. Honestly, good for her. I hope she finds success and happiness. Now, as for David, well, karma is doing its job beautifully. He's now the father of twins, and from what I hear, his business isn't doing too well. He and Nina pretend they have this perfect little life, but only his real friends know the truth. Apparently, things are not looking great behind the scenes. Word is, their marriage is on the rocks. Nina isn't happy with their financial situation, and they constantly argue. So much so that they don't even try to hide it when they're around friends. And honestly, that's just so tacky. But am I surprised? Not at all. One of my close friends still keeps in touch with people from our old social circle, and every now and then, she updates me on their drama. And let me tell you, it's hilarious. It's honestly so satisfying to know that David is struggling after everything he put me through. Maybe one day, I'll truly let it all go and just ignore his existence entirely. But for now, I'm enjoying knowing he's suffering. And I have zero regrets about that.